You're crazy. We can't send 70 fleets against a fortification. They won't stand a chance. Chiara Iorigo's lip curled up in obvious displeasure, and her voice took on a tone of indignation. We're not attacking the fortification, though, that's the point. The ships would sail in under cover of darkness. We attack the shipyard directly. It's still crazy. If word gets out, they'll sink our ships and feed us to the sharks. If the fortification's alerted before the raid's complete, then we'll face heavy losses for sure. So, it's the losses you're worried about. A note of scorn entered her voice. Are you a corsair or a coin purse? Don't bait me, Chiara. I'm responsible for the lives of my crew, not you. The risks are just too high. So are the rewards. Dima says the Grendel are building a new navy. They've laid down the hulls already, 4 of them. If we time it just right, they might be seaworthy. Uspio y Moraz Iorigo stared at the Hakima, chewing on the implications of what she'd said. It'll still be risky. Chiara just grinned at the Demiro. Life should never be dull, she retorted. Overview. The recent endeavour to have the inhabitants of Segura contribute to the defence of the territory to encourage military units to fight there have been successful. The only flaw was that no actual fighting took place, though of course that did at least mean the Empire lost no more territory there. Sadly, the focus of the barbarians appears to have shifted to Feroz, where the Grendel have made significant advances. As a result, there is a proposal to extend the Segura scheme to cover Feroz as well, albeit with some caveats. Although there were mixed messages from the Freeborn Assembly and the Imperial Synod, they did endorse a mandate encouraging corsairs to attack the Grendel shipping and to look for opportunities to take the fight to the invaders. In response, captains have pooled their information and managed to identify 4 possible targets. If the Assembly can pick one of them to focus on, then they will carry out all the planning needed to prepare a fully fledged raid. Just rewards. With the support of the Freeborn Assembly, Mazo Isabella Irigo travels Segura and the surrounding territories, urging Freeborn citizens to dig deep to support the work of the soldiers fighting against the Jotun and the Grendel invaders. The Brass Coast has never been threatened so badly, with orcs attacking on 2 fronts. The Empire's enemies have never been unified, but even so, people worry about the implications of these 2 enemies invading at the same time. What would it mean for the coast if the Grendel and the Jotun were working together? There is little that most folk can do about such matters, but what they can do is put their money where their mouth is and contribute to the defence of their homeland. Donations pour in, with substantial commitments from some of the prominent Demiros in the territory, as well as representatives of the Zenres Islanders. They will meet their obligations. As a result, every military unit that supported the Marcher armies in Segura this season received the Freeborn Bounty, an additional 5 crowns in support from the grateful Brass Coast citizens, with stronger units receiving proportionately more. Concerns that the military council might remove the Guerdon and leave the Brass Coast to foot the bill for the defence of their homeland has abated. People were pleased to see that both the Strong Reeds and the Tusks received the Guerdon, so there was no prospect of military captains missing out on their just rewards. However, they are disappointed to discover that the Imperial armies haven't engaged in any fighting. Stationed in Segura on defence, the people of the Brass Coast have been left paying for soldiers to remain in their camps. People understand that military strategy is complex and that the Council cannot simply determine the outcome. They appreciate that the defence of Segura would have benefited from the choice of tactics if the Jotun had chosen to attack, but it still rankles to have paid out and got little for it. Wiser heads suggest that they should view the whole thing as an insurance, that they've paid to ensure the Jotun could come no further. Fair enough, folks say, but if they are to pay it again, it will be conditional. As a result, they will offer the same rewards for the coming season, but only in support of any Imperial army that attacks the Jotun forces in Segura. A troubled time. Disappointment with the standoff in Segura is nothing compared with the horror that the news that Feroz has fallen to the Grendel brings. People are shocked and deeply worried. A few dare to suggest that this is the response of the orc pirates to the imperial raids on the broken shore cities, questioning the wisdom of baiting an enemy where the Empire has no navies to prevent the Grendel attacking where and when they please. They receive little support, though. The words of Iro Irakeza are what fires people's hearts. If the Brass Coast had been hit by the Grendel, then it must hit back even harder. Feroz must be reclaimed and swiftly, and then the Empire must find a way to teach the Grendel a lesson once and for all. The challenge posed by Iro must be met. But how? Perhaps what has worked in Segura can work in Feroz. If the coast wishes the Empire to prioritise the protection of their prosperity, then it is only right that the people pay for it. People should enjoy the just rewards of their labours. However, the purses of the coast are already stretched thin, contributing to the defence of Segura. It will be easy enough to ask people to pay twice, but it will not come cheap. An example mandate reads thusly: the thieving Grendel have conquered Feroz and will soon loot every coin from the coast if we let them. We send this priest with 50 doses of Liao to urge every freeborn citizen to contribute what coin they can spare to the defence of the coast. Let us drive them into the sea. If the Assembly endorses this mandate, then it will extend the freeborn bounty to every military unit fighting in Feroz in support of an army attacking the barbarians. This help is in addition to the aid provided to soldiers fighting in Segura. However, the costs will not come cheap. Every resource in the Brass Coast, apart from military units, will suffer the impact, losing one effective rank of production in the coming season. Everyone will spare what they can to defend the coast from barbarians, but it will not be without cost. Due to the actions of the Wisdom Assembly and the Sword Scholars, the mandate will need to receive a greater majority to have an effect. Conflicting judgments. Concerns all along the coast that the Prosperity Assembly seemed to be confusing raiding your enemies with stealing from your friends have been laid to rest by the statement raised by Luca Iteziel Irakeza. The fact that every priest who voted offered their support to the judgment has reassured the Great Corsair families that their way of life is not under attack. Those families are disappointed when they discover that the mandate endorsed by Efinia Imaristella Irakeza encouraging every ship on the coast to find new ways to plunder wealth from the Grendel was so contentious. Although those, like the Zancho family, who feel the coast should focus on trade are reassured that their cause is not completely lost. Even more confusing, in addition to narrowly passing the mandate urging everyone to use their fleets to attack the Grendel, the Brass Coast overwhelmingly supported a statement claiming they would not tell people what to do with their fleets. Whatever Tiana Izedan Irakeza intended is not clear, but it does seem to suggest that the Freeborn Assembly is struggling with the idea of giving direction to the Corsairs of the Brass Coast. The fact that more priests supported this judgment than were prepared to vote for a judgment encouraging the Corsairs seems to imply that many priests are concerned that their words might somehow undermine the freedom to choose your own virtuous path. Chiara Irarigo, the Hakima who called for the original mandate, speaks for many in response. The Imperial Synod is not the Senate, she points out. It cannot pass laws and compel freeborn citizens to do as it directs. But people look to the Assembly to help them understand what is virtuous and what is not. Across the Empire, nations look to their assemblies for guidance. Nobody has to do what the Synod says. They choose to listen to, and where those words resonate, they choose to act. Chiara urges the Assembly not to fail their responsibilities to the coast, and she reassures them that if the people of the coast are not persuaded by what they hear, then they will let their assembly know. The common folk of the coast are not worried that they are losing their freedom because the assembly urges them to act. Never be dull. And urge it does, even with the caveat of the weak vote of support. The Corsair families of the Brass Coast need only the smallest encouragement from Efinia to take the fight to the Grendel. Ships are sent to every part of the bay to sniff out opportunities, while Demiro and Hakima pore over naval charts and weigh the odds. There are risks involved, of course there are, but life is short. Let it never be dull. Excited by the prospect of an opportunity to attack the Grendel, the Corsairs of the Brass Coast have identified 4 opportunities that they could exploit. More work would be required to assess just how difficult an attack might be and what rewards it might entail, but they are all definitely viable. They are all dangerous, however, and it is clear that any fleet that takes part in one of these opportunities risks being damaged. So the raid will need careful planning and preparation. To that end, the Corsair families have asked the Freeborn National Assembly to pass a statement indicating which single opportunity they should pursue. If there are competing statements, the families will choose whichever option has the greatest margin of votes in support of it. The full plans for the assault will then be presented on the run-up to the Winter Solstice 383YE, so that those attending Anvil can use the opportunity to drum up the necessary support. The Jade Shark. The most obvious target would be the Temple of Tempest Jade. This large stone structure seems to be studded with a small ransom of Tempest Jade. The place is a temple to the evil sea eternal Siaka, worshipped as a god by the Grendel who forced shackled slaves to leap to their deaths on the churning rocks below. The temple was one of the viable targets for a raid when the Empire opted to attack Duvtraig instead. Wise captains caution against assuming that the previous information will still be valid. However, the Grendel are not fools. The Empire have carried out a number of successful raids against them. They will have taken precautions. Still, the temple is an important target. Raiding the temple would be a blow for the Grendel and might undermine their relationship with the Shark Eternal. The Salt Lord. Another target that was passed over in favour of Duvtraig was the slave markets of Vorlach. The town of Vorlach is a rich mining town that imports slaves and exports raw metals, including mithril and salt. It's located in the northern coast of Shail and is controlled by the Salt Lord Morvain. It is not clear what has happened to the Salt Lady Suriad following the attack on Duvtraig, but it could well be that Morvain has taken her place. If that is the case, then it's hard to imagine a more significant blow to his reputation and prestige. Like the temple, the markets are likely to be better protected than last time. Crucially in this case, unlike the other three options, it will not be possible for the Corsairs and Imperial fleets to operate alone. An opportunity like this would need significant assistance from the Imperial military units as well as fleets. But it would allow the Empire to free a significant number of slaves and potentially carry off a bounty of mithril. The Granite Ships. One new option that's been presented is to attack the Assavean ships that are trading with the Grendel. Assavean vessels dock regularly at Duvtraig, laden down with cargoes of slaves and white granite. The vessels are heavily protected when leaving Assavean waters to ensure that the Sumar are unable to attack them. But by the time they reach the Bay of Katazar, they sail alone, apparently unconcerned by the prospect of piracy. If the Corsairs attacked the Assavean merchant shipping, they could have easy pickings. Freeing slaves and capturing bounties of white granite. It would take a season for the Assaveans to realise what was happening and change tactics. But during that time, the Corsairs could do a lot of damage. In addition to the plunder, it would completely disrupt the supply of white granite to the broken shore. It would be illegal. It could still be carried out, but every captain taking part would face heavy fines as a minimum for their actions. Unless, of course, the Senate declared war on the Assaveans, in which case it'd be perfectly fine. If the two actions were well timed, then the Assaveans would have no warning and the Imperial fleets could pick them off without fear of repercussions. The Drake Island. The most risky target could well be the shipyard at Drake Island. There is a large fortification here which protects the approach, defending it against attack from an Imperial navy. But a daring operation by small fleets might attempt to sneak in under their noses and steal the prize. And what a prize! According to reports, the Grendel have laid down hulls for 4 enormous warships. Preparations for building another navy, no doubt. A raid on the shipyard would offer no loot for Corsairs and captains, but it would give a chance to damage or destroy the warships. With enough fleets committed to the raid, the Empire might even be able to capture one or more of the warships and sail them back to Madruga. If the Empire had a shipyard of their own, the captured warships might provide a significant boost to the construction of a new Imperial navy.